Hello. Welcome, everyone. It's been a busy week here in Montana. We had Florida Governor Ron DeSantis with us, warning of the dangers of our growing national debt and emphasizing the importance of balancing the budget and cutting taxes. Bills are moving through the legislature, and we're continuing to promote our agenda. Cutting taxes for Montanans at every income level, creating more good-paying jobs, and making Montana the best place to live, work, and raise a family. Key to our conservative vision is ensuring young Montanans have the best education possible. And over the course of the last few years, we've made a lot of progress. Expanding educational opportunities, empowering parents, making historic investments in public education, and establishing career paths for our students. Alongside parents, teachers play an important role in helping students succeed. As a son and a father of teachers, I'm well aware that teaching is one of the most noble professions. That's why our focus has been targeted on investing in our classrooms, where our teachers teach and our kids learn. While there are many ways to invest in parents, students, and teachers, we know for a fact that a bloated bureaucracy only gets in the way. That does not serve our students or our families well. And for too long, Montana teachers, especially those just beginning their careers, have not been compensated properly for their work. Over the last 4 years, we've worked together to change that, to boost starting teacher pay by establishing the TEACH Act. The TEACH Act made historic investments to raise teacher pay across the state. In its first year, the TEACH Act helped nearly 500 Montana teachers begin their careers in Montana with higher pay. In 2023, we increased funding for the program by 40%. The program is working, and we can and should do more. That's why I proposed $100 million additional to build on the success of the TEACH Act. That proposal is carried by Representative Lou Jones in House Bill 252, called the STARS Act. STARS, or the Student and Teacher Advancement for Results and Success Act, will continue incentivizing our districts to increase starting teacher pay, while also fully funding the Advanced Opportunities Act, so more students can take advantage of dual credit and work-based learning. Additionally, we're continuing to promote our cell phone-free policies across the state. Students of all grade levels should be focused on learning when they're in the classroom, not their cell phone. Too often, however, social media and constant notifications tear at their attention. Ultimately, students in our classrooms should be focused on their teachers and not TikTok or Instagram. To that end, our budget proposed $1 million in one-time only funding to create cell phone-free schools. Our budget provides incentives for school districts to get rid of distractions in the classroom and adopt cell phone-free policies. According to a 2023 report, 97% of students age 11 to 17 use their phones during the school day, often texting, social media, and gaming. Students receive an average of more than 50 notifications per day. These things make it hard to focus. Creating a distraction-free learning environment is crucial for student success, and cell phone-free schools are a proven, powerful solution. By eliminating this distraction during the school day, educators have seen significant improvements in student engagement, focus, they've seen less disciplinary issues, and improved academic performance. But don't take my word for it. Let me put a face on this for you. Just yesterday, I visited with students, parents, and teachers at Bonner School, just outside Missoula. Bonner, home of the Lumberjacks, serves just over 300 students. And the school has benefited from our policies to support Montana teachers. In fact, they have 6 teachers, 6, who have benefited from the TEACH Act. One of them is Parker Stevens. Parker is a first-year teacher at Bonner and said he was glad the TEACH Act had benefited rural schools. Jim Howard, Bonner School District Superintendent, put it best, quote, "The quality of our teachers matters most. Being able to incentivize those people financially to work at our school is huge," end quote. By building on the success of the TEACH Act with House Bill 252, we can ensure more Montana teachers get a strong start on their careers. And it will help them live in and be part of the communities where they teach and inspire the next generation. Bonner also has a cell phone-free school policy in place. In talking with school administrators, I learned they first adopted the policy way back in 2012. They told me it has helped students focus on their learning, and students are more present in their interactions with their peers and their teachers. McKenna Quinn, an English and language arts teacher in her 6th year, said the school's focus on the impact of cell phones, quote, "helps students become more aware of the effect that their device has on them, and they come up with great ideas on their own on how to set limits," end quote. But I don't just hear from teachers about the success of these policies. Parents and students love it too. Georgia, an 8th grade student, said it's a great policy and that being responsible with cell phones in schools help address depression and anxiety. We should listen to students, parents, and teachers. By using $1 million in one-time only funding, we can ensure that schools have resources they need if they choose to go cell phone free. The resources they need to better ensure students are focused on what's most important in the classroom, learning, and their teachers. Our proposals are focused on delivering for Montanans and their families. We know a public school system that supports its teachers and prioritizes student success is just one of the keys to developing a stronger, brighter future here in Montana. We'll continue to champion education as a top priority, alongside cutting taxes for all Montanans at every income level, reducing red tape, and passing meaningful property tax, business equipment tax, and income tax reforms so Montanans can continue to thrive. With that, I'd be happy to open it up for questions. I just remind you to state your affiliation and your name. Who wants to go first? Yes.
Okay, I'm Carly with Lee Newspapers. Thinking about the STARS Act, there has been a little bit of a conversation around the fact that perhaps or some feel that it doesn't go far enough in addressing kind of longer term teachers, and kind of there's that retention question with them as well, burnout, quality of life for those teachers that have been around for a number of years. I guess I'm just wondering sort of how you would respond to that general concern and kind of how you're thinking about that feedback.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. We've made raising teacher pay a real priority. We started with the TEACH Act in 2021. We expanded it by 40% in 2023. The STARS Act is really the next step. And what we found when we analyzed this, there was a very broad range in salaries for teachers. By raising the starting pay of beginning teachers, they carry that with them through their career. And we also recognize that salaries are set by the local school board, not by the state. So what the STARS Act, I mean, it includes $100 million of incremental funding, particularly to help with starting teacher pay and this Opportunities Act, which will dual credit and other things. If we get teachers started on the right foot at an increased salary level, that increase persists through their career. So I think it takes care of teachers at all levels. Yes?
It sounds what I'm hearing, I think, is that as you diagnose the challenge, the problem is primarily about early career teachers as opposed to teachers overall. Is that fair?
We know that by encouraging more people to enter the teaching profession with a competitive salary, we're going to get the highest quality people. And that, if you bump them at the beginning of their career, no one's pay ever goes backwards. So it persists through their entire career. And you are correct. There was, unfortunately, we have one of the lowest starting teacher pays in the country. This is why we've really put so much resource into it over my entire tenure in office. Yes, Jonathan.
Jonathan Ambarian from the Montana Television Network. I've heard some of the legislative leadership was disappointed that the STARS Act wasn't paired, or rather, a bill that they sort of saw as paired was the MAPS bill about investing in non-public school education expenses. And I was curious if you had seen those as a pair, or if you had seen them as something that you wanted to see both of those go through, or if you hadn't viewed them in that way that some of the legislative leadership talked about them.
Yeah, I really, the question is about how does MAPS and STARS relate to each other? Were they paired in some way? I'd say no. I am very supportive of STARS because it really implements a key component of our budget that we laid out during the State of the State to target expanded learning opportunities and starting teacher pay. That's what STARS does. MAPS was really focused on adding more options for parents to choose different options for education. I've been a strong proponent that parents know what's best for their kids and providing more options there. My understanding is that MAPS bill is stalled or not coming forward. That's a little bit of a disappointment to me, but I think there are steps we have taken in the state, including authorizing charter schools, the Big Sky scholarships, expanding the funding for that. We are giving parents more options in picking what's right for their kids. Yeah.
Blair Miller with the newspapers. On the 1 million.
You're back in your caucus again.
Yeah, I know, right? There's like so many. So on the 1 million for cell phone free schools, what's the current landscape look like in terms of like rural versus more bigger urban districts in terms of what has been adopted? Because I think I remember you saying at one point that this wasn't like earmarked, it was like the districts should come forward and ask for some of this money. So what does that look like now, and where do you see this $1 million going, I guess?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There can be expenses associated with implementing a cell phone free policy. We wanted to make sure all districts had access to this money to do that. I was in Bonner yesterday. They've had a policy since 2012. What they said is, your cell phone has to stay in the backpack. You can't turn it on during the day unless there's an emergency. It doesn't cost any money to implement that policy. It's interesting, I didn't mention it in my comments, but one of the other advantages of cell phone free policy is students are actually talking to each other at recess. They're building interpersonal skills. That doesn't happen when you're looking at a screen. So academic performance, less disciplinary issues, and they're building relationships and learning how to resolve issues without sending off flaming texts.
Have anybody talked to you about sort of like, say at concerts now or comedy shows, sometimes they have those secrecy bags or whatever they get to put your phones in? Is that stuff that a district could come forward and ask?
Correct. That's what the $1 million is for. They might decide that you have to check your cell phone at the beginning of the day, and those pouches are one way to do that. I was in another school, I think it was up in Plains. They just said the phone has to stay in your locker. I mean, so there's different ways to skin the cat. We wanted to make sure that based on what the local school districts, how they decide to implement cell phone free policy, there's at least some resource there to help them if they need it on a one-time basis. And that's what the $1 million is for. Yeah. Yeah.
With apologies, I have a property tax question. Or the Homestead Bill 231, that's still moving through the legislature. At this point, are we past the point of being able to implement that in 2025 as something passes?
Well, the clock is ticking. Montanans expect me and the legislature to deliver permanent tax relief. I've been very clear on this, and I think they've spoken very clearly. I do think a homestead rate reduction is the right way to do that. It would provide permanent relief, about a 15% reduction in property taxes for Montana homeowners, an 18% reduction for small businesses, and also help renters in indirect relief through their landlord. I'm pleased with the progress it's making. I wish I had it already, but I don't quite. So I would just encourage the legislature, get me the bill as soon as possible.
So if they were to follow up, if they were to meet with that within the next couple of weeks, probably the fastest possible time frame you can imagine it happening at this point, would there still be time to implement that this year, or are we already past the point of that being possible?
It's the right policy, whether it happens this year or next. We are working with the Department of Revenue on how could we expedite implementation, but we can't really begin the implementation until it becomes law. So I need to get the bill. Yes.
As far as bills that you do have on your desk, I think we're still waiting for your signature on House Bill 121. And I think as well, tomorrow might be the last day that you can sign it before it automatically goes into law. Kind of related, HB 300, sort of around education, sports, etc. I'm curious what your plans are around signing those, and if you have any concerns around litigation once you sign, if you sign.
Well, on 121, I don't think men should be in women's bathrooms or on women's sports teams. You're right. We have that bill's in our possession. We're going to act on it within the timeline. So stay tuned there. Again, the legislature, there's still a lot of bills flying around. We do our due diligence on them to make sure there aren't any unexpected consequences in any of the fine print. And that's why it takes a little time for us to fully consider them, because we know when the legislature comes up with some great ideas, I have to actually implement them. So there's a little extra scrutiny that goes on in the governor's office.
Do you expect litigation if you're to sign either or both of those?
I don't know. I think they're good policy. Yeah. Any online questions? Yeah. Yeah.
Earlier this week, we talked about balanced budget amendment. Today, Senator Nolan's SJ4, I think it is on the floor for second reading. And I think on Tuesday, Monday, whatever day that was, I think I asked you about some of the bills that had sort of been stymied so far. Is this one that you see as a good option moving forward?
I can't comment on the specifics. I was pretty clear. I'm an advocate for a balanced budget amendment at the federal level. Every state but one has a balanced budget amendment. Every business essentially has a balanced budget amendment. Every family has a balanced budget amendment. Virtually the only group that doesn't have a balanced budget amendment is the federal government, and they're spending like drunken sailors. And I think that it's not fair to put that burden on our kids and grandkids. I spent some time in Washington. My first day, I advocated that Congress shouldn't be paid unless we balance the budget. And frankly, I got booed by the Republicans and the Democrats. In a certain sense, I brought, for the first time in a long time, brought unity to Capitol Hill. They were all in opposition. I introduced a bill that was entitled Stop Paying Dead People. We knew about all these Social Security payments years ago. I couldn't even get a hearing in the House for that bill, even though it was such a common sense bill. So the time has come to act, to put some guardrails on federal spending, and I'm supportive in concept of the balanced budget amendment at the federal level. Yeah.
On that, so
Go ahead.
Montana, of course, is a state that is in many ways reliant on federal spending. How would you, if the feds were to get to the point where they would implement a balanced budget amendment, how would you want to see that happen in a way that avoids creating problems for Montana where we're relying on those federal streams?
Yeah, we do rely on federal funds. We're looking at this. I sent off an advocacy letter yesterday to the Department of Energy for a plan that's already been granted. My understanding is the Trump administration is primarily focusing on waste, fraud, and abuse, and there's a lot of it. And you can see from the work that's being done, they're finding tremendous amounts. In the long run, if you're in a hole what you have to do is stop digging. And that's where we are. We talked about this earlier this week with Governor DeSantis. We had massive federal debt after World War I and after World War II. The way we got out of those holes and got back to a balanced budget and reduced the debt was by growing the economy. If you have a certain amount of debt and you double GDP, the magnitude of that debt on a relative basis is cut in half. This is how Andrew Mellon did it as Secretary of Treasury after World War I. It's the way we did it in the U.S. after World War II as well. So with pro-business policies and some restraint on spending, I believe we can get this national problem under control. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while for us to dig ourselves out of this hole. Good. Last question, Jonathan.
Governor, speaking of taxes, yesterday there was a hearing on a couple of bills related to statewide sales tax. I know that in the property tax task force discussions last year, you said that you were opposed to looking at a statewide sales tax. These are bills that would put questions about that to the voters, and I was curious if you had overall a philosophical objection to putting that question out to the voters, or if you thought it was worthy of at least taking a look at.
Well, my opposition to a sales tax is based on the fact that Montanans have said they don't want a sales tax. So to ask the question again, it's certainly up to the voters to decide, but we're not gonna advocate for it. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.